Hi again, everybody. My name is Thea Monyee, and welcome to Truth Talks. Here, I basically give feedback on your emails and letters for advice on things such as family dynamics, love, life, art, parenting, friendships, and I just give you advice based on my experience as a marriage and family therapist, but just as a mother, an artist, another objective human being. These talks in no way replace your own intuition, belief system, medical professional, mental health professional, family, friends, significant other. It is simply an external, objective viewpoint, which we all could use from time to time, right? So last week, we did a truth talk on actions versus words, and the response was really incredible. And I'm really excited, and I want to thank Lily again for sharing her story and letting that story affect so many people with her honesty. So thank you again to Lily. Today, we're moving on to a different truth talk subject. Today's subject is co-parenting nightmares. And I'm going to be honest, while I look up the letter, I struggled with this one because I wanted to feel really prepared for it because it's very challenging, very nuanced, and the specific details of the parenting situation are really important. So the feedback you're going to get today on this is going to be pretty generalized. And because the letter came from a male, I will be speaking more so to the male perspective and offering advice from that standpoint. If in the future you would like it also from the female standpoint, you can definitely send an email and tell me your story, and I would love to do that as well. So let's get into this letter on co-parenting nightmares, okay? So we're going to call him Joe. It's not his real name, of course. I don't share real names, but Joe says, "Hi, Thea. I am a 38-year-old man going through a separation with two children. One is 12 and the other is 6. After 14 years of marriage, we finally ended things, and I thought we would be able to move through the divorce process in a healthy way for our kids. It has been a total nightmare. I feel like I don't even know her anymore, and the worst part is the kids are caught in the middle. I tried to keep them out of it, but she insists on using them against me. She refuses to go to co-parenting classes or to cooperate with me at all. Sometimes I feel like just walking away. What more can I do? Please help. Desperate Dad." That makes me sad. But thank you, Joe, for sharing your story and for offering it here for today's Truth Talks. And I'm going to see what I can do to help. This is a subject that I'm very familiar with, both personally and also professionally. It comes up a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of us have unresolved issues that we take into our parenting dynamic after the relationship has ended that negatively impact our children. So I'm going to begin with what I believe and have experienced to be the number one factor or determinant in whether or not you are going to be able to have a healthy co-parenting relationship with your ex. And that is forgiveness. If there is not forgiveness in this dynamic, there will be very little success at a healthy co-parenting relationship. And when I say forgiveness, what do I mean? I mean, I think we use that term very loosely and very sometimes irresponsibly to where we shuck it off like, yeah, I forgave. I mean, I'm over it. That is not what we are talking about here, right? What we are talking about is forgiving this other person for who they were in relationship to you in the past relationship, and forgiving yourself for who you were in that relationship with them as well. Yes, you have to forgive yourself too. And the reason this is important is because if we don't do this, then we will operate with this person in the present, trying to create a new dynamic, a parenting relationship, but we will be treating them and we will be responding to them from the past. How can that possibly be healthy for us or our children? So what does that forgiveness really look like? Because we can say, well, I'm over it. I let it go. What that forgiveness looks like is relinquishing the idea that this person could have done something differently than what they did. And that you could have done something differently than what you did when you were both engaged in that relationship. The reality is you didn't. You didn't, they didn't, and the relationship isn't here anymore. And it must be for the best because the relationship isn't here anymore, right? So what we tend to do is keep this person on a hook where we feel like they are swinging and dangling and waiting for us to let them off the hook. But we don't realize that we are swinging and dangling along with them. And now our children are swinging and dangling along with them. You cannot move forward if you don't forgive, if you do not acknowledge what is no longer here. If you truly want to start over and have a co-parenting relationship with someone, you will, one, stop bringing up the past because it is not here, and your past will become your future if you let it. You will, two, only discuss and think in terms of what is in the best interest for my child. What does that mean? That means that you can't think about your bruised ego. You have to think about this is the other person who helped to create this beautiful child that we now share. And whether or not we worked out romantically, this child deserves to have both parents in their life, right? Because that is what a healthy co-parenting situation includes. It includes two parents that have let go of the past, who are willing to create a new dynamic as parents and move forward and create a great parenting plan and structure for this child that will be cohesive and clear, who are willing to acknowledge that this child needs them both equally, that no one is more important than the other, that this child, for their healthy development, deserves to know that they are loved by both parents at all times. It means showing support in parenting decisions. And all of these things require trust and forgiveness and a willingness to move forward. Clearly, that's not the situation Joe is talking about, right? So the situation we're talking about right now is a dynamic that we would want to look at and call sick. And the sickness is difficulty letting go of the past, reacting to the person, responding to them as you would have in the past, operating more from your ego than the best interest of the child. And some of the symptoms of this are negative talk is a huge one. Oh, your dad never does anything right. Oh, your mom is always bitching about something. You can't say this in front of a kid without negatively impacting them because they still have a relationship and a strong spiritual connection to that parent. To denigrate that parent is to denigrate a part of that child. And that's just the truth. And they feel that and they experience that, and then they start to manifest it in ways like depression, anxiety, their grades slipping, isolating, not sleeping, not eating. And these are things that we don't want our children to experience, right? We want our children to feel happy, perfect, whole, and complete. So that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to co-parenting nightmares. Now, it can get worse. Let's say you have forgiven. Let's say you are trying to move forward and you have, like Joe said, offered co-parenting classes and I want to work with you. There's levels of this that can get so toxic that pretty much what you are doing at that point is damage control for yourself and your child. And what I mean by that is the other parent really is sick, emotionally disturbed or mentally ill and cannot function in reality, cannot move towards a healthy co-parenting dynamic because they're really not healthy in their own individual dynamic. And at this point, you have to take a different stance. At this point, I think the healthiest thing for you to do is to engage in something that's called parallel parenting, right? Where you basically attempt to parallel with this parent instead of sort of coming to a middle like you would in co-parenting. So you just make sure you provide the best and clearest and most loving and nurturing structure you can for the child when the child is in their care. You continue to provide only information relevant to the child, to this person. You do not engage with them about the past. You do not discuss the past with this person. And honestly, this is where you might, as a father, since we're talking to Joe today, really need to examine what you have done legally in terms of paperwork, establishing your rights, establishing custody agreements. Honestly, in my opinion, even if you have a healthy situation, it does not hurt if you are a male to get your paperwork in order. And here's why. I know a lot of men who are under the assumption that they have legal rights to make decisions about their children because they signed a birth certificate and they've been there since the child was born. But there's a lot of states, like in the state of California, where you need to first establish rights. So what does that look like? That means that if this mother decided tomorrow that she does not want you to see this child, and you try to go to the police and say, my child is being withheld from me, the police are going to say, well, where's your paperwork? And if you don't have it, then you don't have any right to go get your child. Now, I know the tough guys out there are going to say, well, nobody's going to keep my child. I'm going to go get my child. Okay. But anything aggressive or attacking is not going to help you in the situation. What would help you in the situation is to be aware in advance of what your rights are. Educate yourself as a father. Especially, this is really pertaining to non-married couples or exes or fathers. Now, it's different per state. So you need to do the research and educate yourself on what the laws are in your state. But do not make the assumption that you just have the right to walk into a place and demand medical, educational, or even physical rights to your child just because your name is on the birth certificate. And I know a lot of men want to avoid that because there's legitimate anxiety about court, especially for men of color. I 100% get that. But I just would hate to see you in pain as a father because you didn't take that step as a preventative measure, and then your child is in a situation where you can't help them. I mean, the choice is up to you. I'm just presenting options, right? So here's the advice for Joe. First, Joe, examine whether or not you have really, truly, and completely forgiven. And forgiven yourself and the other person. Whole forgiveness. There's a book called Total Forgiveness by R.T. Kendall. It is more on the religious side. So people who aren't that into that, you may have to sort of be discriminate in what you take in from this book, but it does have really good insight on what the concept of forgiveness is about so that you can make sure that you are actually forgiving who you say you are forgiving. The next thing is do not engage in the past. Do not discuss it, and do not even give it the power of she's trying to keep my kids away from me. She's trying to destroy my parenting relationship. That is impossible. Those are your children. They love you. You love them. They know they are connected to you. There's nothing that can destroy that. So have peace about that, right? So then you just walk your truth. When your kids are with you, you give them all the love and attention you possibly can. You reinforce them. You teach them character. You teach them forgiveness. You teach them about love and life. You make sure that your legal matters are in order, that you are not giving up rights that you don't want to give up. You want to retain your legal rights. You want to make sure that if anything happens to the child, you have a say-so in that matter. You don't want to personalize this because honestly, if you are being given a hard time and you are honestly trying to do the things you say you're trying to do, Joe, then there's nothing more you can do. You cannot control someone else's decisions or actions. All you can do is, like I said, damage control. You can not take it personally. You can not acknowledge the attacks. You can not engage in the conversations about the past. You can decide the life that I create for my children when they're with me will be a good life. And I'm going to move forward, even if this person doesn't want to. And you do that. You move forward with your life. You do the things that you want to do. You don't stay stuck or depressed. You also find additional supports. I'm in LA, so Project Fatherhood is wonderful. They have meetings and they offer support. There's also breakthroughparenting.com. They discuss the different types of co-parenting styles and give tips for engaging in co-parenting. There are a lot of resources, and I would beg you not to walk away, because that would be the saddest thing you could do for your children. You keep fighting, but not through aggression or attacking. You keep fighting through love and through forgiveness and peace and truth. And I promise you, your children will benefit from that. Now, if we're talking about the parent, like we said, that's emotionally disturbed or mentally ill, that is the reality of who that child's parent is. That's the reality of who you chose to parent with. And that child and you will deal with that for a long time to come. But that's a part of your child's journey. They will make peace with that their own way. You just do the best you can for now. And I would like to say overall, to everybody paying attention today, that if we don't want to end up in these co-parenting nightmares, the best thing we could possibly do is just freaking use protection every time you have sex with somebody who you can't see yourself parenting with. I know it's convenient not to, but is it really worth 18 years in and out of court? I'll let you decide that. Thank you again so much for tuning into today's Truth Talk. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a good one.